Well, I just got off the water and I spent the majority of the day flipping and pitching a big weight, a 1 ounce weight. And I absolutely had the time of my life. Can I say that real quick? I turned my electronics off, I flipped and pitched, and it was just a ton of fun catching a lot of fish. Now, with that being said, there are 3 kind of big mistakes that I want to talk about when it comes to fishing a big weight, a 1 ounce weight or even heavier, that can really kind of make or break your day. There are things that I have known for a long time, but there are things that I still make mistakes of. And in this video, I want to talk about that. Now, before we get into it, this video is brought to you by my apparel company, Fin Fishing. Right now for the month of July, so just a few more days, all of my USA made sun shirts, which are one of the only USA made sun shirts out there on the market, are all 20% off. So you can get one of them at 20% off, you can get 5 of them at 20% off. And if you buy 2 or more, you also get free shipping. So just another couple of days. It's the 28th right now, so just a few more days to take advantage of this. Shopping at Fin Fishing is truly the best way to help support this channel, and I greatly appreciate it. All right, let's talk about the big weight. And like I said, in this video, I really want to talk about a few big mistakes. They're ones that I even made today, and they're ones that I make every time I flip and pitch the big weight that I know are mistakes, but even so, I still have to be very intentional about doing the right thing out there, because you can lose a lot of fish. Now, the first thing, and what I think is probably the biggest mistake when it comes to flipping and pitching a 1 ounce or heavier weight, is the hook set. The hook set is extremely important when it comes to this technique. And this is something, you know, a number of years ago, I spent 5 weeks down in Florida. This was like 7 or 8 years ago. And I was flipping and punching into matted vegetation a lot down there. And this is really where I learned. Actually, this was almost 10 years ago. Gosh, I just thought about that. This was a long time ago. But anyways, I really learned a lot about flipping and pitching over that 5-week span, especially when it comes to a big weight. And I realized that the hook set is your number one thing that you need to get right. Now, the thing that can mess you up when it comes to flipping and pitching this big weight, when you set the hook and you set it like maybe I do, where I tend to set the hook really, really hard, you will actually, and you may have heard this before, but you will really blow the fish's mouth open if you set the hook very hard. So especially if you slackline hook set. So when a fish has this in its mouth and you set that hook really hard, it actually pops that mouth open. You're using such a big weight, it pops the mouth open of the fish, and it allows that hook to actually pass through. And today, I did this probably 3 times, where I just, you know, you flip. The thing about it is when you flip into some heavy cover and it gets just below the mat, all of a sudden you feel that thunk. I mean, it's a hard hit a lot of times. You really have to be intentional in your mind about just not absolutely jacking the crap out of the fish. And this is something, like I said, I make this mistake all the time. And I did it at least 3 times a day, where I just set the hook too hard, and you would literally feel that weight, because you're using braid, because you're using tungsten, you would feel that weight smack that fish, blow its mouth open, and your weight would be coming at you like 100 miles an hour. So that's also very dangerous. You need to be careful when you're fishing a big weight. Make sure you're always wearing glasses just because of that factor. But the big thing is you do not need to set the hook hard, and you also want to make sure that you have a tight line. So a lot of times what I found to be best is if I flip there in the mat and a fish is boom, I mean, he hits me, I let him pull me down, physically let me pull him down, and it's a swift pull back hook set. That is what works. That is what hooks fish. And that is what you really have to be intentional about. And for some of you, this is going to be really easy. But if you're like me, you tend to like to set the hook hard. You have to be intentional about it. I cannot explain to you how important that is. Now, the second mistake that I see a lot of anglers make, and this is one that I made for a long, long time, and it kind of goes again with hooking up with fish, and that is, it's very important to snell your hook. I use a straight shank hook when I am flipping and pitching heavy cover, and if I am using a 1 ounce weight or more, I snell it. I snell that hook, and you can see when I put a little bit of pressure, it kicks that hook out. That's what snelling that knot on there does. It's a little crapped up right now, but that is what it does. It kicks that hook out, which again helps you to hook up with fish. So if you kind of have that swift pull back that we just talked about, it kicks that hook out, it pivots the bait out, and that is where you can get them a lot of times in the roof of the mouth. When I was intentional about setting the hook the right way with the snell knot, dude, I had it through the top of their nose, that hard part of a bass's snout. I mean, even with like some 3-pounders and some 4-pounders, it was hooked extremely good. That fish was not coming off. But if you don't snell, I found that you will not hook those fish as good at times. And again, a number of years ago when I was in Florida, I wasn't snelling. You know, I was always told, hey, you need to snell knot, but we all get lazy. I get lazy. And it's so easy for me to just tie a little Palomar knot with my braided line and just start fishing. Snell knot takes a little bit more time to tie, but it is so worth it. And there's a lot of guys out there that'll say, hey, even if you're using a 1/4 ounce weight, a 3/8 ounce weight, that you should snell your line. I'm not completely under. I wouldn't say that that's 100% like you need to do it, but I know that there are guys out there that are better than I am at flipping and pitching. Guys like Kyle Welcher that would say, hey, he snells his knot. Anytime he's flipping and pitching a soft plastic, he's going to snell his line, whether that's braid or fluorocarbon. So snelling your knot, using a snell knot, tying it onto your hook, very, very important. One of the most important things. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about when it comes to flipping and pitching in cover is the size of your bait can matter, but doesn't always matter. The big thing about it is I believe that as long as you can get that bait through the mat, a bass aren't always going to have a good look at your plastic that you're throwing. Today, the cover was just thick enough where I needed a 1 ounce, but I didn't always need it. So it could go through, and I actually caught them on 3 different flipping baits. And I didn't honestly care about the color. I didn't care about the soft plastic even, because it's the fall rate. When that fish is sitting underneath the mat and that thing just whizzes past their head, that is what makes a fish just all of a sudden go there and bite. That's what I said. When a lot of times when you get a bite flipping and pitching, you pop it through the mat and you would feel a punk, a big old hard knock on your bait. And that's purely a reaction strike. You could have had a hot dog on the end of that and caught that fish. But the thing is that smaller baits, as you can see here, this is a little muscleback finesse crawl. They do tend to go through mats easier. So if you're flipping and pitching, you know, hyacinth or really thick matted vegetation, maybe thick matted over hydrilla. I've done this with eelgrass up in the northern part of the country. If you're dealing really thick mats, those smaller baits do go through the mat a lot easier, which in turn will help you to be more efficient out on the water. So that's why I say that I don't always think that the bait matters because of the fall rate, but I do tend to go with smaller baits because it just goes through that mat a lot quicker. And it like I said, when you're flipping and pitching a mat, say you go down, say you do this all day long. If you're using a bait that's a little bit bigger, you're going to have those times where that bait, you're sitting there and you're jiggling that weight to try to get that weight to pull that bait through the mat and go under. That amount of time that you spend could have been 1 or 2 pitches for another guy who may be using a small bat. So say over the course of a day, you might make twice as many pitches in a mat as a guy who's fishing a big bait versus that small bait, or small bait versus the big bait, which is going to in turn lead to just more fish. It's going to lead to more production out there on the water. So being efficient is really, really key. That's why I tend to go with smaller than average baits when I am flipping a big weight, like a 1 ounce weight. Gosh, it is so much fun. I had an absolute ball today. Can't wait to share that video with you guys over on Bass Fishing HQ. If you guys enjoyed this video, you can click on my most recent one right here. Also, don't forget to check out the Fin apparel while it's on sale right here. I will see you guys tomorrow.